Hey everybody, Todd McFarlane here. Thanks for joining me. Obviously, we're doing this long distance because of the complications in life. But before we get going and I start to ramble and give you some insight into what we're doing in 2021, let me just sort of show you where I work at here. I don't know if any of you have had the chance to sort of see my office before, but we got lots of toys in the window, right? We like to show off the stuff that we do that's in there. And come up inside here. We come inside, and some of the people that come and visit us as they're waiting get to see some cool comic books and toys. Usually somebody's here to meet everybody else, and then we've got sort of a nice sitting area here. We're going to talk about, take this off here. The office that I'm in has been shut down since last March, so almost one full year. Only a handful of people are in the office these days. We're going to talk to you today. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into movies, update on movies, update on the comic books, what we're doing, and some of the things we're doing in toys. So let's just get to it. All right. Now let's talk about toys, right? Been doing that since 1994, going way back when. Before we get into any of the toy details, let me tell you a story. I don't know if you guys know sort of the origin, if you will, of how I started the toy company. As everybody knows, obviously we started Image Comic Books in 1992. But soon after, once the books started coming out and the titles started coming out from Image, Spawn was at the top of the charts. Not only selling the most at Image, but also selling the most in comic books at that time. So what was happening was people were looking at these charts, you know, the top 100 sales or the top 10 in the country. And they were seeing this brand new character all the way back to 1992, 93, Spawn, right? They didn't know what it was. Spawn. And so what happens is, in a lot of industries, you go looking for strong brands. And what people were doing at these various companies is that they were seeing that this character they'd never heard about, called Spawn, was #1, and it was above characters that they knew. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, the X-Men. So they made this simple sort of rationale. Oh my gosh, if it's selling more than those, it must be as good, if not better, than those. Obviously, that wasn't true. Those are AAA characters and brands, but you take your breaks any way you can get it. So people started coming to me asking, hey, do you want to basically do all these different sort of ancillary products? Obviously, we made the movie deal back then. We made the deal with HBO for the animation. We did some video games, but one of them was the toy guys all came to me. And when the toy companies came to me, the big public ones, the conversation, I've said it before, was I thought we had to make non-traditional toys and sell them in non-traditional places. That wasn't going to work. They wanted to do their same sort of perfect and tried and true formula and put it in. So I asked a simple question. How hard is it to make a toy? And oh, by the way, if we're going to make a toy, I don't understand why they can't just be cooler, right? Because the toys at that time were pretty bland. And so in 1994, and here I don't recommend to do what I'm about to tell you that worked for me, because I think it's a 1 in a million shot. I went to my first toy fair in New York City, and normally at toy fairs, the big companies like the Hasbros and Mattel had entire buildings, literally 10 stories high. They had the entire building, and if you were a buyer, you would go into that building and you'd go up and down the first floor, and then you'd go to the elevator and go to the second floor, up and down, and you kept doing that all the way till you went up essentially 10 stories high, right? Okay. Then you went to Mattel. I was in one building on one floor in one office, and that one office literally was cut up into 40 pieces. And each of us essentially had, there were a couple a little bigger than me because it was my first one. I essentially had 5 feet by 5 feet, not much more than you can see right now on the screen. That was essentially the size of my booth. And here's the piece that I don't recommend. I went to Toy Fair with 0 prototypes. I had nothing in my booth. And all I had done was made some packaging, took some drawings, cut them out, put them on cardboard, and put those cardboard cutouts in the packaging, and put them up. I had a bin of Spawn Hot Wheels that I had made, some custom-made Hot Wheels that I'd run through Mattel, so I was giving those away, but I had no figures. And now the moment, and this is the lucky break that anybody that's in business needs to get, and was my lucky moment. The door opens and the buyer for Toys R Us walks into this room where there was 40 of us all sitting around. Toys R Us was the biggest toy buyer at that point, right? Today it's, you know, Walmart and Target and those kinds of companies. But back then, 1994, Toys R Us was still the #1 buyer of toys. And so when the Toys R Us buyer walks in, everybody basically stops what they're doing and they basically freeze. And I always sort of likened it to like when sort of the commanding officer walks in the barracks at a boot camp for the military. Everybody sort of stood up and got ready and stood right by their little 5x5, 6x6 little booth. And as the Toys R Us buyer came, he walked by all the booths. And if he walked by your booth, you were getting no buys from him. So as I've said before, I could see that as you walk by people, I could see the people he walked by being sort of crushed. That's like, oh, he didn't stop at our place. And so it was like crush, 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 crush. And he came around the corner, and then he stopped at my booth. And here's the moment. Here's the lucky break that you all have to have. Do I think that powerful toy buyer at Toys R Us cared about Todd McFarlane? No. Do I think that he cared about Spawn and the book that had just come out? No. Do I even think he knew about either one of those? No. So now the question is, so how did you get your toys there? Because standing next to that very powerful man, he had an assistant. And the assistant to me looked like he was about 22 years old. And it was the assistant who said the magical words that day. Hey boss, this is that guy I've been telling you about and his character. And it was the 22-year-old. And he had enough, the buyer had enough confidence in his assistant that when the assistant said, hey, you should take a look at this, his boss said, okay, I'll go take a look at it. So he made the journey across the street to this one building on the one floor in the one office to this one 5x5 booth because his 22-year-old assistant, I assume was a comic geek, was buying all the product. And he asked me on that fateful day, given that I had no prototype, what was going to be the size and the scale, and I told him about the same size as everybody else, a little bit bigger. And he said, can you deliver the toy on this day and can you give it to me at this price? I had no idea if I could, but I said, of course I can. And he said, if you can do that, then I will put your toys, your Spawn toys, whatever this thing is called, in all my stores. I will go store-wide. Now, if up to that point, I couldn't get meetings in all the other big stores at that point. But if you now have store-wide distribution of one item, in this case the Spawn line, in the biggest line of stores buying toys in the country at that point, which is Toys R Us, then guess what you get to do, ladies and gentlemen? You now get to phone up those other people that you couldn't get a meeting, and you introduce yourself. And the introduction goes like this. Hey, my name's Todd, and this is my company, and I've got this sort of line of toys I want to show you. Oh, by the way, Toys R Us has gone store-wide with them. Now, you say that last sentence to them, and then Walmart will sit there and go, whoa, hold a sec. Toys R Us is our competitor. What did they know that we don't know? We can't let them have the edge. If they're going store-wide, we need this product too. So they brought me in and they went, if it's good enough for Toys R Us, it's good enough for Walmart. And you can imagine what happens after that. It just starts, the dominoes start falling. Then I just walk into now Kmart, and I walk into Target, and I walk into all the other stores at that point, and it just keeps going. Now I get to walk into Target and say, hey, I've got my product called Spawn. It's going to be in Toys R Us and it's going to be in Walmart. You want some? And they're going, well, we can't miss out on this thing called Spam or Prawn or Sperm or whatever it is you're calling it, Spawn. We'll buy it too. And it just went dick, 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 dick. And next thing you know, my product was in all these big mass retailers. It should never have happened that way. And now the second big piece happens. Once you get your toy on a shelf, right? That's sort of half the battle. But once you get this toy on a shelf, you need the second part. And the second part is that somebody has to buy it. Because if they put your product on a shelf and it doesn't move, then they're never going to buy any more of it, right? And luckily, thank you fans, you guys came and you jumped into it and you supported the wave of Spawn. Not only at the beginning, we did 35 series of it, and it literally began the boulder going down the hill of what would become McFarlane Toys, so that I could then years later go and get other license and keep doing what we've been doing now for over 25 years. So that assistant for Toys R Us, and I don't know his name. I wish I did, because I owe him my company pretty much. When he said that fateful words, this is the guy in the character I was talking to you about, boss. That was it. That was the beginning of why I'm still in business to this day. We have all these trays here of all these characters, because we have to paint these, hand paint all these figures, so each one of these contains like literally one-of-a-kind paint jobs here. They're pretty cool. Some of the figures, you know, some of them are already out. We get some of their accessories and stuff. But as you can see, not only do we have here like a big list of, but look at this. Like literally, there's a room full every day of dozens and dozens of figures that we have to go over and modify and correct and do all that. Bunch of cool stuff coming out this year for sure. Now, let's talk about some of the things we got coming up. We've been doing some branded stuff, as you guys know, over the years with TV movies and all that other stuff. Our big stuff as we've been doing, which seems like it's been longer than that, but it's only been 1 year. We've been doing the DC Multiverse, right? We got the contract started in January, and within a couple months the pandemic hit and everybody sort of got pushed back. But we've had pretty big success with it, not only with some of the regular items, but with some of the Build-A-Figures that we've done in the past. We're going to continue to do those things. We've got some vehicles that we're coming out with. We've got another new Batmobile, and we're doing something even bigger than that right now. That's going to be about this size. We've got different sizes of figures that we're going to be doing, what we call sort of our regular figures, and then our mega figures. So those are the ones that are scale-wise are too big to put into a 7-inch package. So we need to get them out, you know. So, I mean, think about a character that's in the scale of, like at Marvel, over like Thanos, or in my comic books like the Violator, or DC Multiverse, you know, characters like Darkseid or something like that. Characters that are going to be much bigger, Swamp Thing, you know, that have different degrees of size. We have to have different sort of scales so that when you put them on your shelf, they're not all going to be the exact same size. And so we're going to have some fun with all of those. We've still got our homegrown brand here, Raw 10. Raw 10 not only has been doing pretty well, we've got new characters coming out, because who doesn't like big giant mech sharks and gorillas? But we're also trying to take some of those ideas into Hollywood and trying to see if there's a way we can maybe get that off the ground. Got some crazy ideas about Raw 10 coming in an entertainment fashion. The other one I'm pretty excited about too, let me just grab a couple here. The Warhammer ones have been doing really well. Interestingly enough, the unpainted ones, because again, this is something that people normally go and paint. I'm going to be introducing, because I just think they look spectacular, the unpainted toys with a gray primer on them, what we call the artist proof. I did it with the Kickstarter with the Spawn. All the artist proofs show off all the detail, and they don't. Sometimes when you put paint on them, or you mold them in black or dark plastic, you lose how much detail is actually there. So one of the things we're going to be introducing, I'll bring you some of the detail. And we're going to start doing a small percentage of each one of the figures, and as many of the lines as we can get signed off of artist proof. So those will officially be sort of the hardest to find figures, the gray ones. And for those of you that want to hunt those down, and you have a whole shelf of the unpainted ones, and you'll have essentially what we have here at the office, and they're sort of super cool. So look for that. Obviously, we had our Doom toys came out because of the pandemic. Some of the movie schedules got sort of turned around a little bit, so that movie has yet to release, but we'll come back with hopefully more of those when they come. The Mortal Kombat toys did well for us. We even have the, let me go grab here, from the Witcher video game. Witcher video game looking cool. What else do we have here? Fortnite. We continue to do Fortnite toys. Right, we do Fortnite toys. We're doing My Hero Academia. Continue to do those. We're going to do different sorts of sizes of those. We have currently 7 contracts. Currently, we're just finalizing for 7 new brands that we'll be able to bring to you probably by mid-year. Some of them really huge IPs and brands and TV shows. Movies, you know, all the above. We're going to be bringing that to you. But like I said, I'm pretty excited too that we got back in a pretty meaningful way with the Spawn toys. Look for those. We're going to do more of these as we come out, and with the introduction of Spawn's universe, there's going to be more and more characters that we're going to be able to put in there. So in the universe, we'll be able to do a wide range, not just Spawn figures, but all the new characters that we've got in there. So for any of you that have any ideas, please send them along. If you want to see if there's a favorite DC figure that you want to see, bring it to us. We'll take it up to Warner Brothers and see if they'll let us make that. And if you have a favorite Spawn character that you want to see, or even from any of the other brands that we announce, go to our website, let us know which ones are your favorite, and we'll make sure that we try and get as many of those as possible. So the toys will continue to come, and we had a huge success, matter of fact, a record-setting success, with the Spawn Kickstarter that we put out last year. And so we're going to be doing another one this year. So let's go and talk about that Kickstarter. All right, let's talk about Kickstarter. In 2020, just as the pandemic was hitting, I decided to come out with our first crowdfunding figure that we'd ever did. It was a Kickstarter. So here's the figure here. We set records for the most action figures ever sold on a Kickstarter program before. The dollar figure for action figures was also a record on Kickstarter. And then we just recently, because of the figure and the quality of it, that the people, thank you very much, you good people, voted us People's Choice for Toy of the Year for the figure. Obviously, because of it being my first Kickstarter, and because there was a pandemic, a couple of things didn't quite go as smooth as I would have liked. I tried to keep it away from my normal toy company and ran it through my comic company, and that ended up being not the best move. So for 2021, we're going to be doing another one. It's going to be a character Medieval Spawn, and I've already seen some of the sculpting, whatever else, going to be all decked out, and it's going to have way more detail than anything that we had here. We're going to get the shipping down. We're going to get the shipping faster, and we're going to get the detail and the quality up. And we're going to try it again, and I know I can deliver it a better product at a cheaper price overall to you for 2021. So look for that version coming out. Don't know how many more we're going to do, if we're going to do more than one in 2021, but the Medieval Spawn is kind of cool because I'm hoping not only to have a bunch of swords and helmets and swappables and stuff, you can move them around, but we're even experimenting right now on how we can make some of them actually even out of lead or steel, so that a couple of the items, whether it's a shield or whether it's a sword or something like that, is going to be sort of not just plastic. It's going to be really hard. So look for the follow-up to the Toy of the Year right here with Medieval Spawn. I'll be giving you those details probably in the next couple months. One of the reasons why I want to wait is to make sure everybody basically got their first figure before I worry about asking them to support a second figure. And more importantly, I want to cut the steel in the mold in advance, so that once literally the last day of the program is over, I can phone the factories and say start making it like within 24 to 48 hours, boom, instead of waiting to make and do a bunch of stuff in the factories like we did on the first one. We're going to have that all pre-done, so we can just go straight into production. And so we'll speed this process up a lot. But I'm telling you, the detail I'm going to show you a bit later is going to look awesome. And look at this is a comic convention we're at. Virtual as it may be, still the word comic book in it. So let's talk about comic book. First, let's talk about the industry as a whole, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. I've said before, and I'm going to continue to say it, with Marvel and DC basically being owned by two big conglomerates, right? DC owned by Warner Brothers, AT&T, and Marvel being owned by Disney. There are now every other company that is not Warner Brothers and Disney looking for content. And if you're looking for comic book content, you have to skip the first two companies, and you have to basically start going down from there. So all the companies that are below that are putting out books are now in the crosshairs, are targets for these books. I believe that Image Comic Books alone has over 20 of their books have been optioned and or developed over the last few years. It's a good place, but even places like Vertigo, or Valiant and Dark Horse and Boom Studio and a couple other smaller ones, they've all had some good luck in getting their product out. Why? Because you can't get the Marvel and you can't get the DC, so they have to take what's left, and that's us, ladies and gentlemen. I keep saying, if you've got an idea, now is the best time to do it. Oh, by the way, people have been asking me, so what happened, how things going, Todd, during the pandemic? Don't want to basically make anybody feel bad, but great. The comic book industry is resilient and, oh, by the way, actually has grown in terms of the number of dollars and the number of units that are being bought relative to the year before. Now, why would that happen? I have a couple of ideas myself. One of them is I think there's a vacuum in entertainment. The biggest vacuum in entertainment is that Hollywood had to shut down all their big blockbuster movies. So now people can't go on a regular basis to those movies. And the conventions, the one where you and I are doing sort of digitally right now, those also got shut down. So think about it. Think about like all the money that you normally would have spent getting on an airplane, getting a hotel, getting a rent-a-car, having to buy your ticket just to get into the front door. That's a couple $1,000s just to get into the front door of a big convention. Then, depending where you live, haven't been able to go out to bars and restaurants or whatever. Also, some of our activity as geeks has been limited which basically means that money that we normally would have spent in those other areas is either sitting in our savings account now or it's in our hand. And what's happening, I think, is that people are now sort of taking that money. You might have been one of the people I'm talking about, and shifted some of your money towards some of your other entertainment areas. That's us, comic books. So we happen to be in a place where the pandemic didn't affect us that much, because historically comic books are done by thousands of people who sit at home in isolation anyways and do their comic books. So let me just tell you that from Image Comics point of view, I don't have the data for Marvel and DC, I can only talk about Image, that we've had more comic books debut last year at over 100,000 copies than we've had in the previous 10 years probably combined. So we're getting some big giant hits that are coming out. Books that came out was a colored version of The Walking Dead Deluxe, The Department of Truth. We had Undiscovered Country a couple years ago that opened up big, and then we had Donny Cates and his team's crossover, and now just recently we got Tony Daniels and Scott Snyder's Noctura. That I've seen the number. It's well over 100,000. So the momentum keeps growing. Even some of the books that we normally would have had that were mid-tier are now getting double or triple what they normally would have. I know personally that the sales of the Spawn comic book pre-issue 300 to some of the issues during the pandemic were up over 800%. 800%. I thought that I'd get some boost coming out of 300, but that boost hasn't been 10, 20, 30%, which I would have been more than happy with. It's been in the hundreds, so every issue in the last 5-6 months of Spawn has either been a 200 to 600% bounce just in the last few months that are going in there. Oh, and here's what we're going to be doing too. You may have heard the news on the comic book front, which is why I think comic books are situated in a pandemic to basically be a go-to place, which is why I'm advocating for all of you. If you've got your idea, if you're a writer, go find an artist. If you're an artist, go find a writer. If you're a colorist, go find somebody who can write and draw. Just the internet is a big, massive machine. Sort of like going to a convention and start going to places where people are putting up their portfolios and introduce yourself and put your teams together. Now is the best time to do comic books. Last year was the best time. It's even better. And 2 years ago was the best time, and it just keeps getting bigger and better and stronger of doing it. What am I doing on my front? You may have heard the news. We're creating a whole new Spawn universe. And in my mind, the Spawn universe is not just about Spawn. As a matter of fact, it cannot be, and I'll probably end up changing the name of it in short order. I see in the future, in 5-10 years, that there will be hundreds of characters, hopefully dozen to 24 books minimum coming out of this universe that will convey all different kinds of characters. I'm hoping the majority of that have nothing to do directly with Spawn and his mythology. So just like you can have a Green Lantern and a Spider-Man and a Hulk and an Iron Man and Flash, all being different characters in a universe. One's Marvel's, one's DC. I'm asking the question: can another big shared universe happen? I don't know. I'm going to try. It's going to take 20 years. As I announced to the retailers, I'm going to need a lot of help. But from that help, we're going to be springing out. So here's what you have to look forward to this year. 4 new #1 books coming from my office. First one, Spawn Universe #1. Okay, that's going to be the impetus, basically the catalyst for all of it. And then we're going to get rocking and rolling because the next 3 are going to be monthlies. Not a one-shot, they're going to be monthly. Now remember, for 28 years, essentially, I've been doing one book. The classic Spawn comic book that came out in 1992, and that's it. I'm going to add 3 monthlies just this year, and we're going to keep going. The first monthly comic book is going to be called King Spawn, and it will be the first monthly #1 Spawn comic book that you can buy since 1992. So if you're even close to being 30 years of age or younger, you've never had the opportunity to buy a Spawn #1 monthly. In August, you're going to get that chance. The Spawn Universe book is going to come out in July, and then month off, and then King Spawn #1. And all of a sudden, Spawn, if you like Spawn, is going to have 2 monthly titles. And then a month off, and then Gunslinger Spawn, a breakout character who I think is going to kill. He's going to be awesome. I'm going to do a little bit of Western, sort of past, and then I'm going to do a little bit of modern stories. I'm going to do a mix and match. And I think he has a chance to be a bigger character by far than my Spawn character. And then I'm going to take a month off, and then I'm going to come in with my team book. And a team book called The Scorched. Scorched #1. So you're going to get, every other month, you're going to get Spawn Universe #1, King Spawn #1, Gunslinger #1, Scorched #1. And by the end of the year, all of those books will be going. Now, here's what's going to happen. Within the Scorched book, the team book, I'm going to rotate the characters so that even though it begins with a bit of a heavy bent on Spawn characters, they're going to slowly turn so that possibly within 2-3 years, none of them will be Spawn related, because I'm going to be introducing a bunch of new characters. Now, there's only one way I'm going to get there, and that's just because I got to have a ton of good, talented people. You've seen the list of the names, but just in case you haven't, I think it's worth repeating. Here's a list of the names right here. We've got Art Adams, never even touched a page of Spawn in his life, is now going to come out. I'm going to be really excited about him. Carlo Barberi, the current artist on Spawn right now. If you haven't taken a look at his work, you should. You should. It's superhero classic looking stuff, and he's helping to basically keep the sales of that book up. Brett Booth, one of the basically young generations of the kids that was there at the beginning of the foundation of Image, is going to come on and do a couple covers, and I'm going to ink over them, and I've already begun that process. They're going to look good. J. Scott Campbell, not only going to do one cover, he's going to do a series of them, and he's going to show you and introduce you to all the characters that are about to come out and be big. Greg Capullo, what would Spawn be without Greg Capullo? He is the preeminent Spawn artist, bar none. And here's one, write this one down, Donny Cates, right? I just got off the phone with Donny not long ago, and Donny and I have a bit of a surprise up our sleeve, so get ready. Donny Cates and Todd McFarlane going to team up and do something cool. Jimmy Chung, artist on some of the cool X-Men that you've seen in the past few years, he's already started delivering some pages to me. He's looking good. Mike Del Mundo. Mike Del Mundo is not only a guy who can pencil and ink, but also paints his own pages. When you see what he's done for me, I've seen the first couple issues. They look amazing. Javier Fernandez, I call him Javi. He's got this great moody style. He's been doing a bunch of great work for Batman and some of the stuff on DC, and I think his style is perfect for the world that he's about to jump into. David Finch, fellow Canadian, he and I years ago did a cover together. I pulled his chain a little bit, and he said that he would come and give me some artwork, and we can have some fun again. Kevin Keane, a new young name that I don't think most of you are probably familiar with. I think he's going to be a star in short order. He's coming on and is helping us with some of the books. Alex Cott. Alex Cott is a writer that I think will bring a sensibility to the world that I've been looking for a long time. I can't write everything, and I don't even consider myself to be that great of a writer. Puppeteer Lee, who not only is a great comic book painting artist, I think he is just a magnificent painter, period. Take the word comic book out of it. Sean Lewis, writer on a book called Thumbs that we published. Sean and I have been sort of working together, been trying to get Thumbs developed as a TV show, but he's going to come on board and help me with some of the stories. He pitched me a couple cool ideas, and I couldn't live without it, so he's on board. Myself, right? I'm going to be doing some writing, penciling, inking, all the things I've been doing for the last 30 years, and doing as much as I can to make sure that all these books stay at the standard as I possibly can. Ben Oliver, a great cover artist. I think, again, one of the best in the world, trying to get him to also do some interior pages. Steven Segovia, another X-Men alum. He knows how to do a bunch of people on a page, and I've seen some of his early work, and it is magnificent. Paulo Siqueira, he's, again, another team book guy, done work at Marvel and at DC. His stuff his pencils are so tight he doesn't even need an inker. Marcio Takar, if you're not familiar with his work, take a look at what he puts up on his Instagram. He did a page of Wanda and the Vision that blew my mind, but he's also done a lot of work in the past, and he's going to jump on board. And as an addition to all that, I just got a nod from a cover from John Romita Jr., a personal favorite of mine. I get to finally ink him for the very first time, so he's jumping on board, going to give me a cool page. So I'm just gonna continue to roll out names as we continue to roll out this universe here. But for me, as I've said in some of the interviews, the big moments in my life, especially starting in my comic book career from about 1991 forward, was the formation of Image Comic Books. We didn't know that we were going to change basically the landscape of what was possible in comic book publishing. We were just a bunch of goofy kids trying to go out on our own and do it, but it worked. And from that, I had a book called Spawn #1 that also came out in 1992. The formation officially of Image is my #1 pride and joy of my comic book career, and my second pride and joy is the creation of Spawn that is still going. Issue 316 should just be coming out now, and #3 is the beginning of this universe. I keep saying to people, if I do my job right, and I plan on spending a long time with this, that we will look back at this year, 2021, that I'm saying is 2021, year of Spawn, the year of Spawn. And we're going to say, oh my gosh, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, Todd, remember when you guys started Image? That was super cool, man. That was a big deal. And then remember you came out with Spawn and he became this big hit for you? Yeah. And then remember in 2021 you opened up the doors and you opened up the floodgates and you basically rolled out the universe, and now there's dozens of characters, of which Spawn is maybe only our 10th favorite character, which would be perfect for a guy like me. If someday Spawn is only your 10th favorite character that I've got coming out of my publishing house, it would be awesome. But I've got some big rabbits in my hat, and like I said, between now and the end of the year, I'm gonna be bringing you some of the big news. We're gonna be bringing out sort of the creative teams. I'm going to be showing you more artwork. I'm going to show you some of the covers. For sure, King Spawn's going to be, other than issue #1s, is going to be an ongoing regular $2.99 comic book. The Scorched is going to be the team book. The Scorched is going to be at $2.99. Haven't quite landed on the Gunslinger, but the Gunslinger is at worst going to be a $3.99 book because I'm going to add extra pages to it. But I believe that like all my comic books should be reasonably priced if I'm going to ask you to maybe take a look at some of them and expand beyond just buying the Spawn Classic one. So for any of you that missed out on getting a Spawn #1, want to build into your collection, at some point I'll be doing another CGC signing, or hopefully conventions will be coming out and you can bring all these #1s up to me and all the creative people involved, and we'll give you the signatures that you are all deserving. Hey, now let's talk about some of the entertainment part of it. Obviously, the piece that I get asked about the most is what's happening with the Spawn movie and our good boy Spawn here. Let's sort of look at the process. Not quite as fast as making toys and comic books, but it has its own sort of rhythm that we're going into that we all have to be patient with, myself included. In 2017, I believe it was, I brought on Jason Blum and his company, Blumhouse Productions, to help in this. So that's how far back we've sort of been trying to get this off the ground. Blumhouse is a company that has done not only award-winning films like Get Out and The Black Klansman and Whiplash, but also he does a bunch of the horror movies, which is really sort of the big reason I jumped on him. Like I said, Get Out was sort of a big hit there, but he was involved in Split, All the Pod, the Purge, series, the Insidious, even recently with the Invisible Man. So I'm in great hands with him. Then we went and picked up Jamie Foxx. I have a talk with Jamie every now and then. He is completely 100% still enthusiastic about this film, so he's not going anywhere. Then we went and picked up Jeremy Renner, excuse me, my mumble. And Jeremy was kind enough to join on. During the pandemic, we've been working behind the scenes on the movie. We just haven't gone public with what that work is. So not only have we been working on it and doing designing and concepting, but we've actually even added some extra talent to it. Some of that talent will become public here in the future. Literally later this week, we're having a big powwow about the movie with all the various parties. The goal is to get the final script in good shape, sell it to a studio, so that basically we'll have the studio, we'll have the people involved in it, we'll have the financial backing, and that we can basically let all of you out there know that that's all true. We may have to wait for a little more normality as to when we can go into production, but the first big goal we're going to try and do is to try and come back to you and say, hey, big box has been checked off, we're going with Studio X in Hollywood, and we're just waiting all the funding and everything and all the creative parts of it. We're just waiting for a production date to get going. So stay tuned. I promise you, we haven't been dormant. Although we haven't gone public, we've been far from dormant, and we're going to get to you on that. I'm also developing a couple of TV shows since probably about a year and a half ago. Been taking some of my ideas into Hollywood, trying to see if any of those are coming. We currently are in development of about 7 projects right now. Again, haven't gone public with what those ones are, but we're soon to sort of burst open the dams of all this information, not only from the movie, but from some of the TV projects that we're doing. So stay tuned. Lots of big Hollywood stuff coming in. As I mentioned earlier, depending upon when any of this news comes, especially from the Spawn part of it, that will only help drive the excitement, I think, with the toys and with some of the upcoming new monthly comic books that we're doing. So right now, the world of Spawn and all his characters are doing quite well. One of the questions also that keeps getting asked to me a lot, almost non-stop for 20 years, is what about the animation? Obviously, many people like the HBO animation, and we keep having sort of off and on talks about that, but we're focused on getting the movie set so that all this other sort of entertainment in the Spawn world can basically fall fairly easily behind it. So none of those ideas are very far from my head, and if they are, you guys are pretty good about asking me from time to time. So that's where we're at on the entertainment end of it. My guess is I would be shocked if we don't have a couple big pieces from the entertainment side, whether it's Spawn or something else, during this coming year in 2021. So stay tuned. All right, so that wraps us up today. Thanks for spending 40-45 minutes with me today. Too bad. I normally would get to answer your questions in person. We'll do that as soon as we can. I'm also thinking of doing a podcast here potentially this year, starting one that I can get live call-ins from you fans. So stay tuned for that news. But more importantly, just thanks for coming out, listening, sitting with us. Hope you enjoyed the information, and we'll be talking at you soon. Enjoy the rest of your con.